After Jake agreed to return with Alara, preparations moved quickly. Humanity was excited about this new chapter, and Jake found himself busier than ever. Soon the spaceship was ready for departure once again, filled with gifts and messages of friendship from Earth. Alara spent her final days on Earth learning about human culture, fascinated by the diversity and warmth she encountered. Jake watched proudly, glad to see both worlds coming closer together. On their last night before departure, Alara stood beside Jake under the clear night sky, gazing upward quietly. "Your world is beautiful," she said softly. "And yours?" Jake replied warmly. "Together we can ensure both worlds flourish." The next morning, Jake, Alara, and their crew boarded the spaceship, ready to embark on their new journey. They departed Earth, excitement and anticipation filling their hearts as they traveled through space. Jake and Alara worked closely together, planning their next steps carefully. Their days aboard the ship were filled with meetings, strategy discussions, and briefings with their team. They understood the importance of their role, knowing both civilizations depended on their leadership and cooperation. When they finally arrived at Alara's planet, a large crowd awaited them, cheering enthusiastically. King Vioran stood at the forefront, looking stronger and healthier. He welcomed Jake back warmly, clearly pleased to see him again. "Welcome home," the king said kindly. "We are honored by your return." Jake bowed respectfully. "Thank you, Your Majesty. It's good to be back." In the following weeks, Jake and Alara worked tirelessly. They met frequently with advisors, planning ways to strengthen ties between their two worlds. Together, they created new policies encouraging trade, education exchanges, and cultural understanding. Jake became deeply respected by Alara's people. They admired his wisdom, courage, and fairness. Soon, he was seen not only as a trusted ambassador, but also as an integral part of their community. One day, as Jake and Alara reviewed plans together, a messenger entered urgently. "Princess Alara, Captain Carter," he reported quickly, "we've discovered a hidden group plotting against the Alliance. They see humanity as a threat." Jake and Alara exchanged concerned glances. "Who leads them?" Alara asked seriously. "General Chorus," the messenger replied gravely. "He's respected among our military. Many soldiers secretly support him." Alara's face hardened with determination. "We must stop them quickly." Jake nodded firmly. "We'll speak with Corys directly. Perhaps reason can prevail." Together, they arranged a meeting with General Corys. He arrived promptly, his demeanor proud and defiant. "Why do you threaten our peace?" Alara demanded calmly. "Humans are friends, not enemies," Corys sneered dismissively. "Humans weaken our kingdom. Our traditions and strength fade with each compromise." Jake stepped forward, maintaining a steady voice. "Your strength lies in unity, General. Fighting allies weakens everyone." "Easy words," Corey scoffed. "But alliances often lead to dependence." Jake remained calm. "True strength comes from trust and cooperation. Our worlds grow stronger together, not apart." Corys hesitated slightly, visibly conflicted by Jake's sincerity. Alara stepped forward softly. "General Corys," she spoke gently, "you've served my father honorably for years. Do not let fear cloud your honor now." Corys stood silently, considering deeply. Eventually, he sighed softly. "Perhaps you speak wisely," Corys admitted grudgingly. "I will reconsider." Jake and Alara knew they had won an important victory. However, they understood peace remained delicate, needing constant nurturing and care. Weeks turned into months, and their efforts began showing clear results. Trade flourished, and educational exchanges brought deeper understanding. Alara's kingdom experienced prosperity and harmony, with humanity benefiting equally. One evening, Jake and Alara walked quietly through the palace gardens, reflecting on their accomplishments. They paused beneath the stars, enjoying the peaceful moment. "We've come so far," Alara whispered softly. "I couldn't have done it without you, Jake." Jake smiled warmly. "Nor could I have done this without you, Alara. Our partnership is what made it possible." Alara turned toward him earnestly. Jake, our people respect you deeply. Your wisdom and courage inspire us all. Jake felt deeply touched by her words. I learned much from your people, too. This friendship is truly special. There. Quiet conversation was interrupted suddenly by the arrival of a young messenger, breathless and worried. Princess Alara, he spoke rapidly. King Viorn has collapsed. He asked urgently for you both. They hurried to the king's chambers, hearts filled with concern. King Viorn lay weakly in bed, but his eyes brightened seeing them. Alara, Jake, Viorn whispered gently, my time grows short. You must promise me something important. Anything, Alara replied tearfully. Protect this alliance, Viorn said firmly. Never let fear or suspicion destroy what we've built. We promise, Jake vowed sincerely. Your legacy will be peace and unity. King Viorn smiled gently, his face serene. Then I am at peace. They remained by the king's side throughout the night, comforting him until he peacefully passed away. Jake and Alara mourned deeply, but took solace knowing Vorn's legacy would live on through their efforts. The kingdom held a solemn but beautiful memorial, celebrating King Vorn's life and accomplishments. Jake stood beside Alara, supporting her through every difficult moment. The people gathered, honoring their beloved king and pledging loyalty to Alara. Alara accepted her new role bravely, determined to carry forward her father's vision. Jake stayed close, advising and supporting her whenever she needed as days passed. The kingdom returned to stability, embracing Alara as their new leader. Jake continued working tirelessly, strengthening bonds between their peoples and safeguarding their hard-earned peace. One clear evening, as Jake and Alara stood again beneath the stars, Alara spoke thoughtfully. Our worlds have truly become one, she reflected quietly. My father would be proud, Jake agreed softly. Peace and friendship were his greatest wishes. She smiled warmly. With you here, Jake, I believe we can achieve even more. He took her hand gently. Together, we can achieve anything. In that quiet moment, they felt deeply grateful for each other. Both knew that despite challenges ahead, their friendship and courage would guide their peoples toward lasting peace and prosperity. As the day of departure drew near, Jake felt increasingly restless. He spent his final days on Alara's planet helping where he could, yet his heart was heavy with the thought of leaving. His crew was busy preparing the spaceship for their journey, home ensuring everything was ready for a safe departure. Jake stood alone in the palace courtyard, watching Alara from a distance. She was busy speaking with advisors, organizing plans to rebuild and strengthen her kingdom. He admired her courage, wisdom, and strength. Later that day, Jake visited King Vior one last time. The king greeted him warmly, grateful for everything Jake had done. Captain Carter, Viorn said with genuine affection, you brought honor and friendship to our world. My kingdom owes you greatly. Your Majesty, Jake replied respectfully, I did only what was right. Your kingdom has taught me much about loyalty and courage. King Vior nodded wisely. Remember us, Jake, as we shall remember you. Jake assured him he would never forget their friendship. He left the king's chambers feeling both pride and sadness. He walked slowly through the palace corridors, committing every detail to memory. That evening, Alara hosted a farewell banquet. The grand hall filled with laughter and joy as everyone celebrated the friendship between humans and their alien hosts. Jake sat beside Alara, sharing quiet conversations between speeches and cheers. I will miss this, Jake admitted softly to Alara. She smiled warmly, understanding his feelings deeply. So will I, but our worlds will stay connected through our friendship. After the banquet, Jake walked quietly in the gardens. Alara soon joined him, and they strolled silently under the soft glow of alien plants and starlight. Tomorrow you'll be gone, Alara whispered gently. Yes, Jake replied softly. But part of me will remain here. Alara paused, looking deeply into his eyes. Jake, before you leave, I want to show you something. She led him to a hidden part of the gardens he had never seen before. There, beneath a glowing tree, stood a beautiful monument engraved with symbols and markings from both human and alien languages. "This represents our friendship," Alara explained gently, "so that neither of our people forget what we accomplished together." Jake felt deeply moved. "It's beautiful, Alara." She smiled softly. "I hoped you would like it." They stood quietly for several moments, cherishing the moment. Jake turned to Alara seriously. "I promise to return," Jake said sincerely. "And will always welcome you," she replied warmly. The next morning, Jake and his crew stood near their spaceship, ready for departure. A crowd gathered, cheering and waving farewell. Alara stood beside her father, pride and sadness mingling in her expression. Jake stepped forward, addressing the crowd clearly. "Thank you for your kindness and friendship. Your planet has taught. Use bravery and trust. We carry your lessons back to Earth, hoping our worlds remain forever friends." Cheers erupted, and the crowd applauded warmly. Jake turned to Alara one last time, exchanging a gentle farewell. "Goodbye, Alara," Jake said quietly. "Take care of yourself." "You too, Jake," she whispered softly. "May the stars always guide you." Jake boarded the spaceship, feeling both hopeful and heavy-hearted. As the ship lifted into the sky, Jake gazed at Alara's world one last time, promising himself he would return one day. Back aboard the spaceship, Jake immediately began recording detailed logs, ensuring everything they had learned would reach Earth safely. His crew worked diligently, everyone aware of the importance of their mission. Days passed quietly aboard the ship. Jake often found himself staring into space, memories of Alara's planet filling his thoughts. He missed her deeply, yet he knew they both had duties to fulfill. Weeks later, they finally approached Earth. As the blue planet appeared in the window, Jake felt excitement and relief. Soon, he would share their incredible experience and discoveries with humanity. Upon landing, Jake and his crew were greeted with excitement and celebration. Scientists, leaders, and families eagerly awaited their stories. Jake spent many hours recounting everything: his rescue of Alara, the betrayal by Tarn and Revik, the brave struggle for peace. Humanity listened closely, inspired by Jake's courage and leadership. Diplomatic leaders immediately began planning peaceful relations with Alara's planet, preparing future exchanges and alliances. In the quiet moments between meetings and briefings, Jake often thought about Alara. He wondered if she too thought about him, hoping she was safe and her kingdom flourishing. Months passed quickly, filled with busy days and constant responsibilities. Yet, despite his important work, Jake felt incomplete. Something important was missing, something left behind on Alara's world. Then one day, unexpected news arrived. A diplomatic team from Alara's planet was visiting Earth, seeking to strengthen their newfound alliance. Jake felt excitement and hope fill his heart. On the day of their arrival, Jake stood nervously among Earth's leaders, waiting to greet their visitors. As the alien delegation stepped from their ship, Jake's heart leaped with joy. Alara led the group, smiling warmly when she saw him. "Jake," Alara greeted him softly, stepping forward. "It's good to see you again." "Alara," he replied warmly. "I've missed you deeply." They stood quietly, sharing a meaningful glance. Jake felt deeply happy, knowing their paths had crossed again, strengthening the bonds between their worlds. In the days that followed, Jake and Alara worked together closely, building bridges between their peoples. Humanity and Alara's kingdom learned from each other, growing stronger through mutual trust and friendship. Finally, before the delegation returned home, Alara asked Jake to join her for one last walk. They strolled quietly through Earth's gardens, now familiar yet new to her. "Jake," Alara began gently, "will you return with me? Our worlds need ambassadors, people who understand both sides deeply." Jake felt deeply honored. "You truly want me there?" "Yes," she replied sincerely. "Together we can guide our worlds toward lasting peace." Jake smiled warmly, taking her hand softly. "Then my answer is yes." Their decision felt right, hopeful, and exciting. They both knew challenges lay ahead, but together they could face anything. As they stood quietly beneath Earth's night sky, stars glittering brightly above, Jake felt deeply at peace. He knew his journey, filled with bravery, trust, and friendship, was only just beginning. Jake spent the next days helping Alara and her people stabilize the situation. The arrest of Counselor Tarn and Commander Revik left the kingdom in turmoil, and there was much work to do. The king's health improved slowly, but he was not yet strong enough to resume his duties. Therefore, Alara took charge, guiding her people through difficult times. Jake stood beside her, advising and supporting her when needed. He became familiar with their customs and began to understand their ways. Alara's people treated Jake kindly, now grateful for his courage and honesty. One evening, while Jake was walking through the palace gardens, Alara joined him quietly. They walked side by side under the soft glow of the stars, their silence comfortable. After a while, Alara spoke softly. "Jake, your help has been invaluable," she began gently. "I don't know how to thank you enough." Jake smiled warmly. "You don't need to thank me. Seeing your kingdom safe is reward enough." She stopped walking and looked into his eyes earnestly. "I wish it could always be this simple." Jake felt her meaning deeply. "You worry about the future?" Alara sighed softly. "My father is improving, but he grows weaker with age. Eventually, I must take his place fully. The responsibility feels heavy." Jake placed a comforting hand gently on her shoulder. "You won't face it alone, Alara. Your people trust you, and you have loyal friends." She smiled gratefully at his encouragement. "Including you?" Jake nodded sincerely. "Always." Their quiet moment ended abruptly as an urgent messenger approached quickly. His face was tense. "Princess Alara, Captain Carter," he spoke rapidly. "A group of rebels loyal to Taran and Revik have taken control of a nearby outpost. They demand the prisoner's release." Alara's face hardened immediately. "We cannot yield." "Agreed," Jake said firmly. "We must deal with this quickly before it spreads." Together, they quickly organized a response team. Jake led a group of trusted guards, accompanied by Alara herself. She insisted on joining, determined to face the danger personally. Jake admired her bravery, though he worried for her safety. They reached the rebel-held outpost before dawn. Jake carefully assessed the situation from afar. The rebels were well armed and positioned strategically. He needed a solid plan to avoid unnecessary losses. "We should attempt negotiation first," Jake suggested cautiously. Alara nodded in agreement. "I'll speak with them." "It's risky," Jake warned gently. "Necessary risk," Alara replied confidently. Under heavy guard, Alara stepped forward slowly, approaching the rebel leaders. Jake watched closely, tense and ready to intervene if needed. Alara stood tall, her voice calm but strong. "Why do you fight your own people?" she demanded clearly. "Revik and Taran betrayed us all. Surrender, and you will be treated fairly." The rebels hesitated, clearly uncertain. One stepped forward, anger visible on his face. "They fought for our kingdom's strength," he shouted. "Humans bring weakness." Jake stepped forward then, speaking calmly. "Humans seek friendship, not weakness. Your leaders deceived you. Do not sacrifice your lives for their lies." The rebel leader hesitated further, clearly conflicted. Jake sensed an opening. "You have families, Holmes," Jake continued softly. "Return to them. There is no need for violence." Slowly, the rebels lowered their weapons, surrendering peacefully. Jake breathed a sigh of relief. Alara looked at him gratefully, pride clear in her eyes. "Your words saved many lives today," she whispered to Jake. "Only because you gave me the chance," he replied humbly. Returning to the palace, Jake and Alara knew peace remained fragile. Each day brought new challenges, but together they faced them bravely. King Viorn continued recovering steadily, pleased with their efforts and progress. One night, as Jake worked quietly in his quarters, he heard gentle knocking at his door. Opening it, he found Alara standing there, looking thoughtful. "May I speak?" "With you?" she asked quietly. "Of course," Jake answered warmly, inviting her inside. They sat together, silent, stretching briefly. Alara finally spoke softly. "Soon, your crew will want to return home," she began gently. "What will you do, Jake?" Jake felt the weight of her question deeply. He missed his home, his planet, and his life there. Yet, something about this place about Alara felt equally important. "Honestly," Jake admitted softly, "I don't know yet. I care deeply about your kingdom, and about you. But my crew needs me too," Alara nodded understandingly. "You've done so much already. Whatever your decision, I'll respect it." Jake took her hand gently. "Thank you for understanding." She smiled warmly, squeezing his hand gently. "I could never hold you back." Days turned into weeks, and soon the king felt strong enough to publicly resume limited duties. He openly praised Jake, granting him a position of honor among their people. Jake felt deeply humbled and grateful for the recognition. However, with the king regaining strength, Jake realized his time to decide was nearing. His crew expressed increasing eagerness to return home, though they understood Jake's hesitation. They respected his deep connection with Alara and her people. One evening, as Jake stared thoughtfully into the starlit sky, Alara joined him quietly. "You've made your decision, haven't you?" she asked softly. Jake nodded slowly, sadness clear in his eyes. "I must return home, Alara. My crew needs me, and my planet needs what we have learned here." Alara smiled gently, though sadness touched her eyes. "I understand. You'll always have a home here, Jake." He smiled warmly, taking her hand softly. "And you'll always have my friendship and loyalty." Together they stood quietly, sharing the peaceful moment. Both knew their worlds had changed deeply, shaped by bravery, trust, and sacrifice. Even as paths diverged, their friendship would remain strong, binding their worlds closer than ever before. Early the next morning, Jake and Alara stood quietly in the palace courtyard, discussing their next move carefully. Alara seemed tense, her emerald eyes full of worry. Jake understood her fear confronting powerful and dangerous men like Counselor Taran and Commander Revik was no small matter. "We must find undeniable proof," Jake said firmly. "Only then can we expose them," Alara nodded seriously. "I believe you, Jake, but Taran controls many guards. If we're discovered, they'll imprison or harm us immediately." Jake considered their options carefully. "We need someone inside their circle, someone they trust." Alara thought for a moment. "I have an old friend, Lyra. She works closely with Revik. Perhaps she can help us. Can we trust her?" Jake asked cautiously. Alara hesitated briefly before nodding. "Yes, Lyra has always been loyal to me." They quickly agreed to speak with Lyra privately. Alara arranged a meeting in her private chambers, away from prying eyes. Soon Lyra arrived, appearing calm but clearly concerned. "Princess," Lyra began. "Respectfully, how can I assist you?" "Lyra," Alara spoke softly, "Commander Revik and Counselor Taran are plotting against me and my father. We need your help." Lyra's eyes widened in shock. "Are you certain?" Jake stepped forward calmly. "We have a witness who saw them sabotaging Princess Alara's pod. They want her dead to claim the throne." Lyra took a deep breath, processing this information carefully. "I never trusted Revik fully, but Taran, he's always appeared honorable." "Appearances deceive," Alara replied sadly. "Will you help us gather evidence?" Lyra nodded firmly. "Absolutely. What must I do?" "Watch them closely," Jake instructed. "Report any suspicious meetings or conversations. We must catch them unaware." "Understood," Lyra replied firmly. "I will begin immediately." Days passed slowly. Jake and Alara waited anxiously, hoping Lyra would uncover something soon. The palace felt tense, filled with quiet suspicion and unease. Jake stayed close to Alara, keeping a watchful eye on everyone around them. Finally, Lyra sent word she had vital information. They met her late at night in a secluded area of the gardens. Lyra's face was pale, but her eyes were determined. "I overheard a conversation between Revik and Tarn," she began urgently. "They plan to disable the king's life support tonight, framing you, Princess Alara." Alara gasped in shock. Jake gripped her shoulder reassuringly. "When and how?" "Midnight," Lyra replied quickly. "They'll use the main control room. If we catch them, we can prove their guilt." "Then we must act now," Jake said decisively. Three moved swiftly, silently through the dark corridors of the palace toward the control room. Guards patrolled everywhere, forcing them to hide repeatedly. At last, they reached their destination. Hidden carefully behind a large decorative pillar, they watched and waited. Minutes felt like hours. Just before midnight, footsteps approached. Revik and Tarn entered quietly, looking around suspiciously. Revik immediately went to the control panels, expertly pressing buttons. "Once the king dies, the princess will be blamed," Tarn whispered coldly. "Then nothing stops us." Jake stepped from hiding, confronting them bravely. "You're wrong, Tarn. We're stopping you now." Tarn and Revik spun around, clearly startled. Guards entered behind them, weapons drawn. "Arrest them," Tarn ordered, pointing toward Jake and Alara, but the guards hesitated, uncertain. Alara stepped forward confidently, addressing the guards calmly. "Counselor Tarn and Commander Revik plotted to murder the king and frame me," she declared firmly. "We have proof." Jake quickly activated a small recording device Lyra provided, playing back the conversation clearly. Everyone heard Tarn and Revik discussing their plans openly. The guards immediately turned their weapons toward the conspirators. "You're both under arrest," a senior guard announced sternly. Revik snarled in anger, lunging toward Jake, but Jake easily avoided him, grabbing Revik's arm firmly and restraining him. Tarn tried to run, but guards quickly captured him. "You've made a terrible mistake," Tarn warned bitterly. "You will regret this. Your threats mean nothing," Alara said bravely. "You betrayed our people." With Tarn and Revik detained, Jake and Alara swiftly moved to check King Voron's condition. Thankfully, the life support systems were intact, unharmed by Revik's brief interference. The king remained safe. Later that night, Jake, Alara, and Lyra stood together, relieved yet still shaken. "We did it," Lyra sighed softly. "Thanks to you," Jake said gratefully. "And you," Alara added warmly, looking at Jake. "Your courage saved my father and me." Jake smiled modestly. "I only did what was right." News of the plot quickly spread throughout the palace and city. The people were shocked but deeply grateful to Jake and Alara. The guards treated Jake respectfully now, seeing him as a hero rather than a prisoner. King Vioan, though still weak, summoned Jake to his bedside. The elderly king's eyes were full of gratitude. "You saved my daughter," Vioan said quietly, "and my kingdom." "It was an honor, your majesty," Jake replied sincerely. "You and your crew are welcome here," the king continued. "Humans have shown true bravery and loyalty." "Thank you," Jake responded respectfully. "We hope for friendship between our peoples." King Vioran smiled warmly. "That friendship has already begun." Jake left the king's room feeling hopeful. Returning to Alara, he found her standing quietly by a window, looking out thoughtfully. "What happens now?" he asked softly. She turned toward him, smiling gently. "Now we rebuild trust and peace. My people will know humanity's kindness through you." Jake smiled warmly. "Then we succeeded." "We did," she agreed softly. Together, in that quiet moment, Jake felt the promise of peace and friendship growing. Stronger, knowing their actions had changed both their worlds forever. Jake sat quietly in the cell after Alara left. He felt worried but determined. He knew he needed a plan to escape and prove his innocence. Hours passed slowly, and Jake spent the time observing the cell's walls, looking for any weaknesses. Suddenly, the door opened again, But this time it was not Alara. It was an older alien, tall and stern-looking. His eyes were dark and suspicious. "I am Counselor Taran," the alien introduced himself coldly. "Princess Alara may believe you are innocent, but I am not convinced." Jake stood calmly, meeting the counselor's gaze. "I had no reason to harm your princess. I rescued her from the damaged pod." "Words mean nothing," Taran replied sharply. "Only proof matters. If you have none, you will face punishment." "Then give me a chance to find proof," Jake said firmly. "Holding me here solves nothing." Taran narrowed his eyes but considered Jake's words. After a long moment, he nodded slowly. "Very well. I will allow you limited freedom to investigate, but guards will follow your every move." Jake accepted the conditions, knowing it was his best chance. Soon, 2 guards escorted him from the cell into a vast corridor. He took note of everything: the layout of the corridors, guard positions, and the strange technology embedded in the walls. At last, they reached a large chamber filled with various alien officials. Alara stood near the center, her expression carefully neutral. Jake moved toward her slowly, aware of the guards closely watching him. "Counselor Taran agreed to let me investigate," Jake said softly as he stood beside Alara. "Good," Alara replied quietly. "We must find evidence quickly. My father's condition is worsening." Jake thought quickly. "Who else benefits if both you and your father are gone?" Alara considered carefully. "My cousin, Commander Revik. He controls the military. If both my father and I are out of the way, he becomes king." Jake nodded. "We need to check your pod again. There might be clues there." Alara agreed and signaled to the guards. "We will examine my escape pod again." The guards escorted them back into the forest, closely monitoring every step. Jake and Alara quickly approached the damaged pod. He carefully inspected the damage, noticing something odd. "Look here," Jake pointed at a small device attached inside. "This was planted deliberately. It caused your pod systems to fail." Alara's eyes widened in shock. "Only someone skilled in engineering could install that. Revik oversees technology as well." Jake carefully removed the device, handing it to one of the guards. "Secure this. It's our evidence." The guard took the device and nodded. Jake and Alara returned to the city, now certain they were on the right track. They decided next to speak directly with Revik. Commander Revik met them in his quarters. His face showed little emotion, only mild curiosity. "Princess Alara, Captain Carter," he greeted them smoothly. "What brings you here? We found evidence of sabotage," Alara stated clearly. "Someone attempted to kill me?" Revik's eyes narrowed slightly. "And you suspect me?" Jake stepped forward, maintaining a neutral tone. "You have motive and opportunity. Prove us wrong." Revik laughed softly, cold and dismissive. "You accuse without real evidence. I have nothing to fear." "Then explain this." Jake showed him the device found in the pod. Revik's calm expression faltered briefly, showing surprise. "Interesting," Revik replied, quickly regaining control. "Yet anyone could have planted it." "You have no direct proof against me." "Yet," Jake added carefully. Revik glared coldly. "Be cautious, human. False accusations have consequences." Leaving Revik's quarters, Jake and Alara exchanged concerned looks. "He's dangerous," Alara whispered. "And worried," Jake replied confidently. "We'll watch him closely." That evening, as they planned their next steps, a servant secretly handed Jake a small note. It read simply, "Meet me in the gardens tonight. I have important information." Jake showed Alara the note. "Should we trust this?" She hesitated, worried. "It could be a trap, or genuine help," Jake countered. "We need to risk it." Late that night, Jake moved silently through the palace corridors toward the gardens, avoiding guards carefully. Under the soft glow of alien plants, a figure waited nervously. "Thank you for coming," whispered the alien servant, a young woman named Mila. I saw Commander Revik leaving your pod shortly before it crashed. He was with Counselor Taran. Jake felt stunned. Taran? He's involved too. Yes, Mila confirmed fearfully. I heard them planning. They spoke of killing the princes and blaming humans. Thank you, Jake said earnestly. This will help greatly. Stay hidden and safe. Mila nodded and hurried away. Jake swiftly returned to Alara's chambers to tell her what he learned. Her face paled hearing Mila's words. Counselor Taran is respected, Alara said shakily. We must gather undeniable proof. Jake nodded firmly. We must find out their next move and stop them. Alara agreed, determination replacing fear in her eyes. Tomorrow we confront Taran and Revik. Together we will expose them. With that promise, Jake and Alara prepared for the challenges ahead, knowing their bravery would decide the fate of both their worlds. Jake Carter stood at the observation window of his spaceship, staring out at the strange new world below. The planet, unnamed and previously unexplored by humans, glowed softly in shades of blue and green. It looked peaceful from this distance. Yet Jake knew better than to assume that appearances were trustworthy. His crew had already warned him of potential dangers hidden in the lush forest and towering mountains. Jake turned to his second-in-command, Lily Brooks. She was busy studying the latest data sent back from their drones. Her face showed both curiosity and concern. She pointed at the images on her screen. Captain, she said, these readings show unexpected activity near the northern region. It might be worth checking out, Jake nodded. Agreed. Let's prepare a team to head down. We need to know if there's life and if it's friendly. Within the hour, Jake, Lily, and 2 other crew members, Max Carter and Zoe Martinez, boarded a small shuttle and headed toward the surface. The shuttle smoothly entered the planet's atmosphere and glided down toward the area Lily had pinpointed. As they descended, Jake watched with awe as sprawling forests stretched out below them, filled with strange glowing plants. They landed softly in a clearing surrounded by tall, twisting trees. As they stepped onto the soft ground, Jake took a deep breath. The air was fresh and slightly sweet, unlike anything he had ever experienced on Earth. Stay alert, Jake cautioned his team. We don't know what to expect. Together, they moved cautiously through the dense forest. Strange, brightly colored birds chirped from the branches above. The team felt both amazed and slightly uneasy. After walking a short distance, Lily suddenly paused and pointed ahead. Captain, look! Jake saw a metallic object partially hidden by foliage. Approaching carefully, they realized it was a damaged escape pod. Smoke drifted lazily from its cracked hull, and sparks flashed intermittently from broken panels. Someone might be inside, Zoe said urgently. Jake quickly moved toward the pod. With effort, he managed to pry open the damaged door. Inside, unconscious, was an alien figure. Her appearance was strikingly human-like, but clearly alien, with smooth lavender skin and long silvery hair. Jake carefully lifted the alien woman out, setting her gently on the ground. She's breathing, Lily observed, checking the alien's vitals. But she's injured, Jake nodded decisively. We have medical supplies in the shuttle. Max, Zoe, help Lily carry her. Back at the shuttle, Lily carefully treated the alien's injuries. Slowly, the alien woman opened her eyes, revealing bright emerald pupils. She seemed confused at first, but soon became calm. You saved me, she whispered in clear but accented English. Who are you? Jake asked softly. Alara, she replied weakly. Princess Alara. Jake exchanged surprised glances with his team. Your royalty? What happened to your pod? Sabotage, Alara said faintly. They tried to kill me. Before Jake could ask more, a sudden sound of footsteps approached rapidly. Out of nowhere, armed alien guards surrounded the shuttle, weapons aimed directly at Jake and his team. Their leader stepped forward, pointing at Jake accusingly. You are under arrest for sabotage and attempted murder of Princess Alara. Jake protested immediately. Wait, we saved her! You're mistaken. Take them, the guard commanded sternly. Guards quickly restrained Jake and his crew, leading them away from their shuttle and deep into the forest. As they walked, Jake tried to reason with them, but no one listened. Eventually, they reached a large alien city hidden among giant trees and shimmering towers made of crystal dot inside the city. Jake and his crew were separated. Jake found himself alone in a small cell made of translucent walls. Sitting down on the cold floor, he tried to understand how things had gone so wrong so quickly. Hours passed, and Jake began to wonder he would ever see his team again. Just when he was losing hope, the door to his cell quietly opened. Princess Alara entered, her face full of confusion and guilt. "Captain Carter," she began softly, "I know you're innocent." Jake stood up quickly. "Then why are we being held prisoner?" Alara hesitated, her eyes filled with worry. "There are people who want my father dead. They tried to frame you. I am sorry." Jake sighed deeply, understanding the gravity of their situation. "What can I do to prove our innocence?" She paused, thinking carefully before responding. "You must help me find the truth. There are traitors within our court." Jake nodded firmly. "Tell me everything." Alara sat beside him, her voice low and careful. "My father, King Vior, has many enemies. Recently, someone poisoned him, leaving him very sick. He is kept alive by machines. Many suspects me, his heir, wanting power sooner. That's why your pod was sabotaged." Jake guessed not she nodded. "Yes, they planned my death to remove me as an obstacle. I barely escaped." Jake looked at her sympathetically. "We'll figure it out, Alara, I promise." She smiled weakly. "I hope you're right, Captain, for your sake and mine." Just then, footsteps echoed outside. Alara quickly stood, urgency in her eyes. "I must go. Be careful, Captain Carter. Trust no one." With that, Alara exited swiftly, leaving Jake alone again, determined to clear his name and save both himself and the alien princess, who had unknowingly dragged him into a web of danger and intrigue.